Yeah. I cannot see the time right now. I don't have my.
So it is 10:08.
Yeah, we just let's just go live and let them join
We
us in
are.
because.
We're live now, Carlos.
All right, there you go.
But we're just waiting for, I think, Joan to come back and Cindy to come back. They're trying to get on, I believe, through their laptops. So in the meantime, we'll just hold out and say good morning or good afternoon to our viewers who are with us this morning or afternoon, because now it is afternoon for me because I'm in Atlanta now. And if you can see, my bed is right behind me because there was mold and a leak in my bedroom when I got back. So I've been sleeping out here all week. Hopefully that will change soon. But I'm a little bit tired, Carlos and Ray and Joan. But I know it's not as difficult of a situation as some other people are having. So still grateful to be able to sleep on this bed nonetheless.
Glad you made it safe to Atlanta, and we want to say good morning to everybody out there, wherever you may be watching us from. It's always good to be here and be able to bring our voices, the voice of the people, throughout this platform. And to all of you out there, I know it's hot, summertime, but there is a lot of people that we're keeping in our hearts and in our minds, especially these days, because the pandemic continues to bring havoc to a lot of families out there. People struggling, people hurting. Our hearts are especially with the unhoused community. Those people that have lost their home. Those people have no place to live except their tents or wherever they can find a place to lay down their heads. Our hearts go especially. Um, yes, Mark. Uh, we have some beautiful guests with us today. We are really looking forward in hearing from them and the story of Cindy Brown, an Olympian gold medalist. And who do we have here already? Do we have her?
We have Ray and Joan, who are part of Team Cindy. I think they're going to be help. They're going to be here to help get Cindy's story out to our viewers. So,
In the
uh,
meantime, let's bring some of the news that are happening right now with the housing crisis, because the housing crisis is in peril. The housing crisis is growing. Uh, there is so much instability, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of people out there, if not millions, that are at risk, that are hurting, that are,
Asked her to
you
read
know, going from day to
it, but
day.
she hasn't done it yet.
Going to happen. The court system, we see what's going on. Is flip flopping so much, and there are some moratoriums in place. But as we
Yeah,
have always,
I don't know if they can hear us or not.
yeah,
we can
as
hear
we
you.
have stated before, moratoriums uh, only are band aids
Yeah, and
problems.
we'll
So
have the whole
those are the
fire
things that
started
we are
together
seeing,
next time.
and for now
Okay,
is going to be able
bye bye.
to remain focused and to remain watchful in the things that are happening, because there are too many people at risk of becoming unhoused themselves. But today's story with Cindy Brown, pretty much a story that is heartbreaking, because there are too many families out there that are in her shoes. We have people that are fighting the court system. We have that are in the court system for literally for years, and not being able to get and bring results to their cases is so heartbreaking, and not only heartbreaking, but it's so expensive, and there's nothing guaranteed. Once you enter into the court system, you have nothing guaranteed, and usually the people that has the most money are going to win, because the court system are bent one way, and that is usually with the people that have the money. These are the people that usually get all the benefits of the court system. They may tell us otherwise, but we know it's not true. We know that if you have money, then you're gonna do good in court. If you don't have money, you're pretty much, at the mercy of the court, at the mercy of whatever, but that is the case with countless and countless of families that are in foreclosure. And again, the pandemic has added to that. We have a lot of people that have not been able to pay their mortgages. We have a lot of people out there that have not been able to return to work, and they don't know what's going to happen with their house. They don't know if the banks are going to come in and take them away. On top of that, we have very vicious investors that have manipulated and used the system and find every loophole to take people's homes away. So that's the other reality, and this is the case in point with Cindy Brown that we're going to be hearing her story. Margaret, anything else that you like to add?
Well, Carlos, you did share a link with me this morning about an 83-year-old woman in Miami who was denied, the judge denied motion to delay her eviction from her Miami home in 2018, and her home was foreclosed on fraudulently. But and her attorney tried to argue that the extension of the moratorium should apply to her, but the judge denied that. So there are people from not just being affected, directly by the pandemic as a loss through unemployment, but just because overall the whole housing crisis has been going on for over a decade now, since the 2008 crisis with all sorts of illegal foreclosures, and people are still trying to get justice from that and trying to find ways to stay in their homes. And unfortunately, in this case, so far the judge has denied this senior citizen, 83-year-old, a right to stay in her home during a pandemic in which she herself is at high risk of dying from COVID-19.
And these are the realities, Mark, that the housing crisis has been going over literally since 2008. There are people that are still fighting some of those cases that we saw during the foreclosure crisis. There has been a lot of shenanigans that took place during that entire fiasco and into the entire crimes that were committed by Wall Street at the major banks. Some of you may not know, but my house was fraudulently stolen, literally stolen from me. I actually have won my case at the LA Superior Court against Bank of America, and they still managed to steal my home, even though that I have a court order saying that the house belongs to me. So I know how serious this thing is, and I know how vicious the courts are. That even though that you go through their system, quote unquote, and you do everything right, they can still come and take your home away, as in my case. So I'm going to leave that for another day, because we want to highlight the case of Cindy Brown today. Margaret?
Yes, thank you, Carlos. So we do have Cindy with us now. Thank you so much for joining us. And with Team Cindy as well, we have Joan and Ray, Joan Jackson and Ray Mitchell. And well, why don't we get started, because this is a serious housing issue and a crime that was committed against this great Olympian, Cindy Brown. So I would love to just open this up to Team Cindy and Cindy Brown to go ahead and give us an overview of what happened. We gave our viewers a little bit of a taste of this last week, but I think now we have plenty of time to really get into everything, all the details of the story, and how not unique, unfortunately, this story is in the United States. So I would love it. I don't know who would like to take the floor first, but Cindy or Joan, Ray, you're welcome to go ahead and get started.
I'll start out. Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Brown, United States U.S. Olympic gold medalist for women's basketball. And I am retired through the WNBA, and I never thought I would ever experience anything as such. I've played professionally for about 16 years. I've traveled the world representing the United States flag while competing with the U.S. team and various other club sport teams, ambassadoring the flag, the United States of America, not just Cindy Brown. When you leave your country, you are a representative of your country. So I always kept that in mind when I was overseas. And when it was time to come home and hang up the shoes, I laid a good foundation to retire and to enjoy life and to pursue other dreams and working in the community and assisting people where, you know, there's struggles, just doing, you know, good community work, you know, which I didn't want any credit for those types of things. I kept it on a very hidden platform because you just should do your work and just be, you know, grateful that you're able to provide assistance. But it seems like to me that I was targeted by a financial crime in which my identity was taken from me and it had been reported, but nobody pursued the investigation to find out who was doing it and what their intents were. I don't really want to get too far into the case, but the system failed me miserably, and they refused to acknowledge me as a homeowner, as a professional athlete, as a taxpayer. I was completely ignored. And in fact, I was criminalized for even bringing my voice forward to try to get to the truth of what was going on, which caused me to retain counsel, and which failed me miserably until I found this new team with Ray Mitchell and Joan Jackson and James Imperial, and finding other community groups that have stood behind me because they had similarities in their cases. And I've just been tracking and watching these different events, and it's horrifying that it seems to be like a playbook, because it's consistent behavior that is being perpetrated, and that behavior is not being investigated, and there isn't a resolution for the, I hate to use the word victim, but the person who's being victimized. And they'll continue, these parties will continue to run their playbook, and nobody, there's no consequence for their conduct. I'm going to just leave it at that unless there's any questions. I think emotionally for me, it's bothering me again. It's hard living in the streets. You know, I have to resort to living in a hotel where there's tons of kids running up and down in their room all the way till 2, 3 in the morning, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And there's drugs and prostitution rings, and you know, it looks like a very good place to stay, but it's that nightlife that comes alive. And being where I'm at, in the building, I see all this, and I'm awoke by that, and I have to go and make sure that my vehicle's not being tampered with, and the Cadillac converter being removed from the vehicle. Possibility of someone bashing the windows in, trying to get the radio or anything they may visibly can see in the car, being approached by people for drugs. Now I have people who I guess have some knowledge of who I am, and so they're trying to extort money out of me. This is stuff I have never been exposed to, and having lived in this hotel, I became deathly ill. It's hard out here. It's a survival skill I wasn't really prepared for, but I'm managing. I have a very strong will to live and to get to the truth of what happened and to find out why the system failed me, because we need to change that. We need to change the policies so that people have access to the courts and they have the right to truth, justice. Because as a homeowner, you were a taxpayer, your tax-paying dollars were intended to protect you. So where were you denied access? It's a very significant question and issue that needs to be resolved, because we're just being cattled through the system and rubber stamped as deadbeat losers, and that's not the case. I have evidence that shows that I have identity theft. Okay, what do you do when someone has identity theft? What's the next step? There isn't anything in the government agency that directs us to get the assistance needed to resolve the issue. And so this is why I've formed such a great team that's going to unveil the curtains for you of what's going on. So I want to say thank you to you, Carlos, and to the producer and to the team that's fighting for truth and justice. And God bless you guys.
Thank you, Cindy. So just a quick overview or a few facts for our audience. How long ago did the identity theft occur?
The identity theft took place in 2005, and during the horrifying move out inside the home, I stumbled upon a letter back in 2007 from the sheriff department that I had alerted them that, hey, you know, someone's trying to steal my home and they're using some documents that I was really not familiar with, but it went nowhere. I mean, it looked like it was headed in the right direction, which was the criminal economic crime unit for further investigation, but nothing took place. So 2007, and actually I think I had even reported it prior to that.
Okay, thank you. So,
Welcome.
Ray and Joan, how did you become part of Cindy's team, and what was it in particular that drew you to her case?
You want to go first, Joan? You were the first. You were a leader on the team. You want to go in that order? She may not. Is her mic on?
I think she might be frozen. I don't see her moving, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I will speak while she gets unfrozen, and we can make a movie about that. So my name is Ray Mitchell, and my credentials are less important for this conversation as much as my motivation to want to be part of this quest to restore dignity to Cindy Brown's experience, as well as dignity to how the courts, large corporations, and the legal profession deal with these issues that hit at the core of our humanity. I am a licensed attorney, licensed in the state of California. I've practiced for a long time. I don't really practice now. Right now, I'm an investigator, a writer, and a journalist, and a person very much concerned about what happened to Cindy. So the sum of my observations, and I've only been involved for a very short window. I met Cindy on the podcast, The New Untouchables. The producers had asked me to come on for a number of reasons. And her story, it just knocks you off your feet when you hear just the surface level of atrocities that happened to this person through no fault of her own. And so I began to do my own sideline investigation. I'm curious, I'm an investigator, I'm a writer, and I started looking at the case files. And I went through all of the cases. And I'm particularly intrigued by the statements that are issued under declarations of penalty of perjury, because that's where you hold the truth. All the rest is legal argument. And as recently as this morning, I think I found the beginning of the big lie. And by that, I mean somebody pretending to use the corporate name or some component of it of Bank of New York Mellon has been perpetrating a sham on the courts and on Cindy Brown for the better part of 10 years. I've narrowed it to a window in 2011 where they did what I'm now calling the Bank of New York Mellon name swap scandal. We had the Wells Fargo fake account scandal.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there are more cases out there where entities are misusing the name of Bank of New York Mellon. So when Cindy talks about her identity theft as a person and a human being, we all are mindful that corporate identity theft is as big and growing as any other form of identity theft. And I do believe that the evidence will show that Cindy's predicament is the product of corporate identity theft or misuse of their corporate credentials to get an unfair advantage, to take Cindy's home when they otherwise would not have been entitled to.
So this possible corporate identity theft, in what way was it used to take her home? I know that.
Okay, so the investigation is underway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making some allegations of who or what, but the way it works, and actually, if you go to the California Secretary of State's website, you'll see effective January 1, 2021, new procedures to deal with corporate identity theft. Corporate identity theft is no different than individual identity theft, where people come in and use a part of, some of, or all of the name of a legal corporate entity and then start using it as if they are, in fact, empowered by that entity to act. So in this case, the record is crystal clear in the chain of title for Cindy's case that these alleged assignments of interest from entity A to B to C to D to E, there is a complete gap in the sequencing. And so the records show that at one point, an entity called the Bank of New York Mellon Trust Company inserted itself into the chain of title. The Bank of New York Mellon Trust Company is a separate entity and subsidiary of the Bank of New York Mellon Corporation. That is established fact. There is another entity that is a sister entity called the Bank of New York Mellon. Bank of New York Mellon has many different names, one of which is a state chartered bank out of New York. In and around 2011, somebody started swapping out the name of Bank of New York Mellon Trust Company and started using the name Bank of New York Mellon. They switched the names, and from that date forward, they've been hinky on explaining who is Bank of New York Mellon. And that, to me, was the beginning of the name swap scandal.
It is horrendous when we hear these kind of stories, because the horrendous part about it, because it has been going on for so long. And it's not like the authorities don't have that kind of information available to them. It has been brought up in case after case after case. So what we are also seeing is a broken system that has pretty much received information. They have received the discovery of this fraud that has been perpetrated against millions of people. And when we think about the housing crisis, that was 10 years ago, we think it's over, but it's not over. And Cindy is pretty much the face of this right now, of what has happened in our court system, and the abuse of the powers, the abuse of corporate financial institutions, and people that misrepresent themselves. So this is happening to a lot of people as well. But Cindy's case is unique.
Well, on a real level, we have to sort of look at this on both a macro level and a big picture level. On the macro level, Cindy is the brunt of this attack because she had the audacity to ask them to tell the truth. And she stood firm in her request for the truth. 17 years she has fought this battle for the truth to come forward. And as the truth comes closer to the surface, the threat of her as a voice of hope gets more pronounced. That's what, and may have been a reason for that violence at what should be a routine sheriff's transfer on an eviction. So yes, her case is unique because of what she's gone through, but on a big picture, this happens all the time. And the front line, the crisis on the front line are the following players. The big law firm lawyers are running a mill. They just crank these cases out representing the loan servicers, although they're litigating under the name of the so-called bank. So there's this faceless entity behind the curtain, behind the lawyers. And you never get to them because a large percentage get disposed of on the pleadings, the demur process, the motion to dismiss. So you never get a day in court. And the evidence that Cindy has tried to bring forth for 17 years has never, ever, ever reached a trial or a jury. Never.
Wow.
So you can't say justice is being served when you don't get a day in court with the same people who are supposed to tell you if you have the truth or you don't have the truth. And so it's the faceless entity. The second entity that Cindy has had to confront is this giant corporate monolithic structure where nobody's accountable, but everybody's fingerprints are on it. You cannot name a human being in the Bank of New York Mellon, well, I'm gonna take that back, there might be, who has taken an interest into the humanity and the dignity of what happened to Cindy Brown. You cannot name a person. If I were talking to the CEO of the Bank of New York Mellon Corporation, and they have their wonderful layers and their chief operations of inclusion and diversity, I'd say you need a chief dignity officer who makes sure that your organization treats people with humanity and dignity, because what happened to Cindy lacked humanity, and it was an attack on her dignity. But she stood firm, and you may try and take her house, but you will never take her dignity, nor will you take her humanity. And that's why I joined her team, is to help protect the dignity, because an attack on the dignity of some of us is an attack on the dignity of all of us. And we can't go down that path. We have to put a stop to it. And that's why I want to be a part of something affirming. We're not victims. We are persistent inquirers. We want truth wherever it will fall.
It is heartbreaking when you see and you know people that are being evicted wrongfully. You know, I saw during the time that I did a lot of expensive work with foreclosures. You know, the amount of people that you saw them being thrown out to the streets at no fault of their own because of the abuse institutions. You know, it breaks your heart. I saw the image where the video as Cindy Brown was being taken out of her home. You know, the amount of police force that was used just to evict her from her home while she was still fighting this case. It is beyond belief what we see, the heartbreak. And now, you know, having her to be sleeping, you know, in her car or on the hotel rooms, you know, this is how degrading it becomes, you know, for people that have played by the rules, that have done everything right, but yet they can still have their day in court. That is heartbreaking.
Well, you know,
What's worse even than that,
go ahead, Cindy.
oh, is how they took over the home, and they the way in which the attorneys treated me and my attorneys, that basically like they owned everything in the home. They immediately took claim of my property, and specifically they were targeting the medals and all the honors, like they were taking my entire likeness, like they owned me. It's just unreal. I just,
Wow.
how can you
And you know,
take
that
someone's
brings
gold
to
medal?
another issue. It is the race and the gender and the class. It's the elephant that's not in the room. It's the elephant that has occupied the room. I will tell you, in the entire 27 to 30 years that I have practiced law in this country, I am unaware of any situation where I've ever heard a SWAT team of 50 plus officers showing up with long guns. And there is a report that there was a sniper in the backyard. Unconfirmed, but if true, think about how earth shattering that is. And that was all less than 8 months after Breonna Taylor was killed in her home by law enforcement serving a no-knock warrant. In Cindy's case, the sheriffs did a no-notice eviction. Their policy is normally to post a 5-day notice. And then if there's an interruption in that first posting, they repost it. This case, the records show that the sheriff's return of writ of possession showed that they posted on August 26th. They returned with the snipers, the long guns, and the intrusion on November 16th. There was no reposting of the notice of eviction in that almost 30-day period. It was a surprise and intended effort that, but for a ring device, Cindy would be another statistic of a troubling death at the hands of police authorities exercising excessive use of their police authority and powers. That's what saved her, a ring device. She wasn't home and she saw what was happening, and she had the presence of mind to stay away until there was a calmer situation. I get sick thinking that we would have lost another Black person over everyday things. An eviction should not be a death warrant.
That's right.
It cannot become a death warrant.
And what is troubling right now is that at the balances right now, there are literally millions of people at risk of evictions. And
Yes.
most of this, again, are targeted towards people of color. Because if you, and I'm not making this up, if you look at the statistics, if you look at the numbers, the vast majority of the people that are in the courts that are fighting these cases, that are on the eviction line, are pretty much people of color. The vast majority of those people, the vast majority of the people that end up homeless, that are living on the streets, are people of color. We are not making these things up. So this is again,
Carlos, you can send your audience to the California State Bar, and that's a whole other issue about them. But the California State Bar issued a report, anemic as it is, called The Justice Gap. And where it was, they documented that there is a severe crisis in access to justice for improper people in the state of California, which is not limited to California. There are 20 or more other states where, regardless of income, 50% of most people who have a legal issue will not have access to affordable legal support. And of that number, disproportionately, surprise, are people that look like you and me. So it is not just the justice gap. It is a crisis that has deadly consequences, because when we go back to the foreclosure as an example, and these big law firms, which are predominantly white, they criminalize a civil proceeding to shove us into the criminal justice system as a tool to win. It is the most insidious chain of conduct that you will ever want to read about. But guess what? Nobody's listening because they put a stigma on a foreclosed person. Oh, well, you're just trying to get a free house. Oh, you're just living without free. So until we drop the stigmatization of people who are fighting to save their homes, we will not change the system.
Yeah, that's an incredible point, that just to claim that you're just trying to get a free house, because I think just seeing what has happened since the financial crisis, it's pretty obvious that it's the other way around. That the banks are trying to basically get double back on their money on these homes by taking them away from the homeowners who were paying their mortgages and taking them back for free, and then making a profit off of that flip basically. But
and recycling them through gentrification, sending them back into the market, predatory lending to Black and brown people, set them up to fail, foreclose, take it back, send it back into the marketplace, and so on and so on. So we bear the burden of their investment growth strategies. Our dignity is traded for their return on investments.
Go ahead.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Another area that people aren't really talking about, and it's really key, because I've been watching and tracking this, is the Prop 13, which protects that homeowner when they first purchase their properties. The taxes don't increase maybe 1 or 2% per year, but the banks have taken that position. As the new owner, they're thinking they can take the tax benefit, which is entitled to the original homeowner, so that if you go and buy a new property, you get one in a lifetime to transfer to the new property that you're purchasing, and that stops the inflation of the tax going up. The bank has somehow or another taken over that position, Prop 13. And I actually caught him in that as well.
Right. I mean, when you look at the
tax
layers,
evasion.
Right. When you look at the layers of fraud that is being committed, that continues to be committed, even after everything that was exposed, is really beyond belief. I remember going to court on a home that I had over $300,000 of equity I was not behind payment. And the same thing, I was victim to um, uh, identity theft and other things. And having a paper from the court that you went through a trial saying that the house belongs to you, and then you appear at another court because you've been evicted from the home that you won already, and the judge looks at you and tells you, get out of my court, take your paper. And this, mind you, again, this paper is the official result of a trial, and they're pretty much telling me, get out of the court before I put you in jail. You know, how bad is this? It is bad because it keeps happening over and over and over. And these are the cases that we hear about. Imagine if you're a senior. Imagine if your average person that works and don't want no trouble with the courts, the law, whatever. This is how the people are taking their people's homes. And we see that happening every single day.
These are the targeted people that they intend to take over because they're watching the equity growth in that property. And so as they see that there's a large margin of equity, which in my house was over $1 million, they're like, wow, there's a lot of equity. It's payout time. And here we have an African American woman, and she's single. We'll just steamroll her and into court, get our people set up, and we'll take her house and we'll become millionaires. Then for the seniors, well, they're getting ready to transition. They won't fight very long, and they'll pass on, and we've got another free home. And then the Latin American community, well, they don't all speak very good English, and they can't comprehend. We'll give them the English paperwork. They won't know how to come back and plead in their legal docs, and we'll get them, that way. But in each category that I just mentioned, there's protection under the American Disabilities where, it's unheard of that you serve paperwork on a Latin American who speaks Spanish. It has to be in Spanish. You have to give them a right to understand where to go, what to do, what their rights are. And with seniors, there's just a pound of protective rights that have been absolutely violated. And for me, I mean, they just absolutely exclude me. There's no identity theft protection, even though they have the Federal Trade Commission identity theft affidavits. They have the Franchise Tax Board and IRS basically telling the other agencies, hey, this social right here, it's identity theft. But
right,
there's nowhere to go.
Right. When you hear cases like what we saw with Wells Fargo, where they were fabricating documents, literally fabricating documents, they got caught doing this. They never
the
fixed
blueprint manual. The blueprint manual, which Linda Tyrelli, the attorney, brought forward, and they're still doing it.
That's what I'm saying. They're still doing it.
Yeah, and Wells Fargo is a completely criminal bank, and they were punished for these fake accounts, but they then punished their customers by selling off their student loans and closing down lines of credit, which damaged people's credit scores. So the system, this overall financial system, is entirely broken for everyday people, for the 99% of this country, and it really only operates for the finance industry and those who are connected to it, to the bankers. And I think your story just highlights, really sends this message home that we have a very, very broken system, that the legal system, these judges, they get put into these positions, and and maybe Ray, maybe you have some insight on how these what goes through the mind of these judges. How do they end up in these positions of power and rule in favor of these corporations, these banking corporations? I mean, there's a lot of laws that go through Congress that favor the banking system, and basically makes certain people, certain companies able to steal your property, and not just your home, but like a towing company can suddenly steal your car and sell it for parts after a certain number of days. Like there's so much going on around property and theft that is legalized.
Well, the short way I can try and bring some insight into that, because I'm really I'm researching this issue with regularity and as deep as I can go, actually as part of a book and books that I am working on with Cindy. Her story, my story, our stories, everyone's stories. But on the question about the judiciary, I want to go back to the point about everybody has talked about criminal justice reform, which is certainly an imperative. But let's not lose track that for people of color, criminal justice and civil justice merge at the courthouse. While we have these artificial distinctions that this is a civil case, that's a criminal case, many times the presumption of criminality is built into you as a plaintiff or a defendant. And the judges, with rare exception, come from elite backgrounds like mine. The federal courts are dominated with my colleagues from the Ivies. I'm a Harvard Law graduate. That's where my colleagues go. Only recently did President Biden's administration emphasize nominating people of more diverse backgrounds. And I mean diverse, like maybe a public defender, maybe somebody who's not an ex-prosecutor, maybe who's not somebody's attorney from the ex-law firm of big, bigger, and greedy. Those are the mindsets of people that are sitting in the federal courts who take an elite attitude. This is my federal court. I don't want you peons here. And B, they literally, and there's actually a retired justice who talked about that. They loathe improper people. These are broad stroke comments. Many times you can tell where an opinion's going to go by just the opening paragraph. How you frame the narrative is how they will decide the case. So when they start talking about Cindy Brown is in her 17th year of losing her case, you can close the books.
Right.
On the other hand, in state courts, there's a number of maladies. One, there are a large number of unqualified judicial officers. They are flat out failures who were unable to compete in private practice that either got elected, because how many people really know who they vote for, or they got appointed. They are overworked, which is no excuse. They are indifferent, which is inexcusable. And they literally almost always rely on the staff attorney to do the research and writing, who is also overworked, indifferent, and an invisible force. So you have this catastrophic collision of power, indifference, presumptions of regularity that go in favor of the white attorneys, coupled with presumptions of irregularity attached to people of color. It's rare that you can see a victory because the outcome is determined before you're even served a foreclosure paper. And so you spend all of your mental health energy at the worst point in your life trying to climb out a hole that was dug before you even knew you were in the hole.
Wow. Yes.
I worry about Cindy's mental health. When I first met her, I said, God bless you, when I see the enormity of what she's done. She trained herself to be a lawyer. She's under siege. She's being monitored. When I saw all the videos, I had to go to my mental health counselor because it is gut wrenching to see. And there she was by herself,
Right.
confronted with angry white men with guns, hoping for you to go and act like the stereotype so that they can do a George Floyd on you. And to honor Cindy, she didn't take the bait. That's why she is alive. And I wept for her, not as a victim, but as a person who's facing the loneliness on taking on a system that just doesn't give a damn. There's no humanity in the foreclosure process. There's enough money in the food chain that they can build a healthcare transition payment on every foreclosure, so that when you are at the lowest point in your life and told you have 5 days to get the hell out of your house, you and your rotten children, and take the dog. And in Cindy's case, they hate her, and I don't know who they are, but she caught all that crap on video. And it's those videos that we will make our best effort to send to everybody that needs to hear from her. The monitors of the monitors, the Office of Comptroller of Currency, the SEC, the DOJ, the California DOJ, the California Supreme Court, who calls themselves concerned about the legal profession. They need to investigate.
Yes.
Everybody needs to investigate why were long guns bought to the home to begin with.
Right.
There's nothing right about that as a concept. Cindy did nothing. And fortunately, she's still alive to tell you that.
And I tell you, the reason why what I so very important for us to highlight her story here today is because there are countless of people out there that are alone, that that are been fighting for this, or that simply have walked away because they didn't have the energy, the courage, the money, anything to fight on. So in the meantime, injustice prevails because, again, we have a broken system, a judicial system that is very biased and is tilted. We have laws that are tilted to benefit the rich and the powerful, institutions, banks, investors. That's what it's become. Cindy, how can people follow you? How can they support? How can they see the efforts that you do, and they can give you any kind of support?
Well, the team has they're generating handles in which and emails in which they can follow and support as we push forward to venture into demanding truth for justice. And I should probably allow Ray to because she's going to have that information as to which handle we're going to use and which agencies we'll be speaking with, because it's important that we change policies so that we can protect the people, because right now there isn't any protective policies for the people who are experiencing these foreclosures. And we just want to make sure that people understand that we're here, and we're going to be here for a while.
Until we get those up, here's what I suggest, because there are 3 things that I want to leave for your audience. Is number 1, to stay tuned and follow your social media, Carlos and Margot. so that when we have the social media handles, that you populate them out. And there are three things, there are more, but there are three things we want. One, we want a full and fair investigation by the Bank of New York Mellon. Why the long guns? Why the name swap? Who really is the entity in this entire $1 trillion plus agency company that is the B in Bank of New York Mellon that claims to be showing up in this litigation? We have no idea. Number two, they have the power to investigate the lawyers. The state bar will not. But the client, whoever that client is behind the green curtain, did they know their name was being attached to a SWAT order that could have resulted in death? So when we get our handles up, we are going to contemplate a change.org petition where people can sign on and say, Bank of New York Mellon, investigate this. We only want the truth. We don't have a vendetta. Cindy is as peaceful as I am. I'm a chicken. If you hit me, feathers will come off my mouth. I am a non-confrontational, but I am not going to allow anybody to steal Cindy's dignity or mine, because the last thing, which you'll see in our theme, is an assault on her dignity and humanity, is an assault on all of our dignity and our humanity. So we want you to get your audience thinking that what happened to Cindy can happen to anyone, because there are no guardrails in place anymore. And we are going to try and ask for the investigators to do their job. And ask Senator Warren, who's moving forward with the Housing and Economic Mobility Act. She was my professor at Harvard Law School. I will make a letter. Cindy will make a letter, and we're going to ask her to hold a congressional hearing on dignity in the foreclosure and eviction process. We're people. We're not pleading. Cindy's a human being. I don't understand how she can keep it together. Having seen the videos, it makes you sick that anybody could think that that's okay. It's not okay.
Cindy, you where can we find some of your videos?
Actually, oh, Ray, go ahead.
No, go ahead. The con is the first one that whatever they have, right, would be the start.
Yes,
on their site.
I believe the con or the Untouchables have released a couple of the links, and I myself have the full package of the links that upon approval I can get them to you.
Well, we'll be
But
releasing them
warn
in
you.
an organized way, because we want Cindy owns her narrative, and anybody trying to paint her as violent or difficult or a loser is wrong. And we will show the truth about what happened to Cindy, and everybody should be outraged, from Madam Vice President Harris, President Biden. Anybody who exists as a human being should be sickened by what happened to Cindy Brown on November 16th and what has happened for the last 17 years. It should just make you shame. And we just want the truth out.
It's like what really bothers me as well is, you know, we go overseas and we fight in these wars, and we have wars right here in our own homeland. And we can't fix our own problems here, but we're overseas. I just never understood that.
Correct.
You know, people are suffering. People are
Last point,
hungry.
because words can overtake you when you experience what you see in those videos, and they can take you down. And what I say to Cindy is, she's a phenomenal woman. She's a phenomenal person. Even in the midst of them trying to take her out, she started a foundation called Take Back Our Dignity. And we are in the midst of getting the paperwork of that revitalized, because that is the end point. Take back our dignity. Owning a home should not become the worst day in your life. So please, when we get the handles together, share them, because it's just wrong.
Yeah. And to our viewers, just a reminder that we've been speaking with Cindy Brown. She was a United States basketball Olympian and gold medalist. And we
I can't hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Margaret.
United States gold medalist. She played for our basketball team. She won on behalf of the United States, and she's been facing identity theft, foreclosure on her home, wrongful foreclosure on her home, and is now fighting and has been fighting for 17 years to make right what has been wronged against her. So if you're tuning in late, please rewind and watch from the beginning so you can hear her story, because unfortunately it is not unique. This has been happening to people over at least for the past decade since the financial crisis, and many people, especially from the Black and Brown communities, have lost their homes through these fraudulent foreclosures. So Carlos, we are at the 1 hour mark now. Maybe we should go ahead and wrap up.
Yes, if we have our guests give her their last statement, last final thoughts, and before we come to an end in this podcast. But thank you for being with us, Cindy. You know, we love you so much. We appreciate your.
Thank you, Carlos.
Any final words, Cindy?
I just want to say to all the followers and supporters and fans to keep your head up, stay inspired, stay strong, and just know that we are here. We are paving the way for truth and justice, and we're going to get there together. Just stay in the light. Don't be in the dark. Stay in the faith. Stay in the spirit with the spirit. Keep with the spirit and not the flesh, because that's what they expect. Mountains will be moved. It's just a season of bad and evil. Eventually, this is all going to change, and we're going to get to the mountain, to the top.
Thank you.
Ray, any final words?
We're taking back our dignity, one case at a time. Together, we will establish the standards of how you treat us, not them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And my final comments, I like to say that I have known Cindy for several years now. She's a courageous woman. She's a friend. She's someone that has kept the faith. She has lifted her head up even when everything tells her that she should hang it up. She has continued to push forward. So she's an inspiration to me. She's an inspiration to many other people. But I remind all of us that her struggle should be our struggle. We should be standing with her because she represents, you know, the working class. She represents those people that are fighting for justice in this unjust uh, system that we live in. So, want to say thank you to Cindy, her team for being with us. Unfortunately, we had one that was not able to be with us. She had technical problems, but hopefully you'll be back with us to give us a report of victories and you know, as as you navigate through these troubled waters. We wish you the best, Cindy, and we are here for you. We appreciate you, your courage, and the dignity that you live by. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all of you. Blessings.
Thank you to our guests. Thank you to Carlos, our co-host here on the show. Everyone, to all our viewers, thank you for tuning in this Sunday morning. You've been watching Stand Up Fight Back. I'm Margot Pais, your co-host, and over up here, that's Carlos King, your other co-host, the amazing grassroots organizer on this show. So please remember to tune in with us next week, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday morning. We're on Facebook Live and on YouTube. We stream simultaneously. So if you're on Facebook, you can find us on the Bernie Sanders Brigade page. And if you're on YouTube, you can find us at Insight Out News. So please remember, share us with your friends, your neighbors, anybody who you think could benefit from watching this show. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and follow us. And we'll be here every Sunday morning with more stories like Cindy's and others. We like to highlight activists. We like to get people involved in their communities and to fight against these injustices. These, as they said, these types of injustices are not an attack on just one person. They're an attack on all of us, on all of our dignities. So thank you, and we will see you again next week on Sunday. And please remember to get vaccinated and to wear a mask. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.